the Cleveland City Council today, Monday, August 14th. We will officially call our delayed meeting to order. Thank you for your patience. We went a little long at the 1 o'clock. So we'll call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mayor Brooks.
Here.
Councilwoman McKenzie.
Here.
Councilman Estes.
Here.
Councilman Cassada.
Here.
Councilman May.
Here.
Councilman Hughes.
Here.
Councilman Webb.
Here.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. As is our tradition, we will begin with our Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation by our Vice Mayor Avery Johnson. Let's stand for the pledge. Salute and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Vice Mayor?
That's great. Father, we thank you once again, Lord, for the opportunity to be here. And we just thank you, dear God, for all that you do for the city of Cleveland. We just pray, Father, that you guide us and give us the wisdom, the understanding, the knowledge, and the clarity to do things that will be pleasing and acceptable in thy sight. And we just thank you, dear Heavenly Father, for protecting our city. And we know, Lord, that there are blessings seen and unseen. But we just want to thank you for everything that you do for all of us in the city of Cleveland. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Vice Mayor Johnson. The next item on the agenda is to waive the reading of the minutes from the last regular session, which was July 10, 2023. That does require a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the City Council of the City of Cleveland waive the reading of the minutes of the regular session of the City Council held on July 10th and approve them as written.
Second.
It's a proper motion, properly seconded. If there are no questions or comments, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Aye.
Councilman May.
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie.
Aye.
Councilman Estes. Councilman Cassada.
Aye.
Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman Webb.
Aye.
It carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. Next item on the agenda is special presentations and comments. First, we have Mr. Alan Ledford, who's been patiently waiting to give us an update on the adult education program at Cleveland State. Dr. Ledford, thank you for coming. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mayor Brooks, City Councilman. What I want to do is give you an update. My name is Alan Ledford. I know most of you up here. I am the new Assistant Director of Adult Education at Cleveland State Community College. Cleveland State is now going to be the adult education provider for Bradley County as of July 1st, 2023. Before that, it was TCAT of Athens that was the provider at no cost to the City of Cleveland. We provided adult education services to the city. We were located on Strawberry Lane, but now with our affiliation with Cleveland State, we have moved out to Cleveland State. Our primary jobs that we do is we provide adult education degrees and general education degrees for your high school diploma and also job preparedness with industries. We currently have some partnerships with a couple industries in town, and we're looking to partner with others. But our main goal is with the Governor's Drive to 55 to actually get more people their high school diploma. So I just wanted to update you on our new division.
Fantastic new partnership. Thank you for sharing it with us, and we're grateful. Any comments or questions from the council? Thank you, Dr. Ledford. It's good to see you again. Next, we have our friend and veteran extraordinaire, Mr. John Thomason. Mr. Thompson has requested a moment to...
Thank you, Mayor Brooks, City Councilman. Pleasure to see you today. I hadn't been able to see you in a while. First thing is, our Veterans Home now has 3. The very first party in was Mrs. Elizabeth Norwood. They've added 2 more, and they're continuing to evaluate and see the needs of the current veterans that are on the waiting list. I feel there will be some transferred, as was advised back at the grand opening, which we had back in June. They've been diligent in trying to take care of every request that's been made of them to make sure they're ready to go. Ms. Washington has hired a number of staff, has a number of more staff that she's considering. The second item I wanted to bring to your attention is we have a wonderful city. We know that. We have a wonderful county. We know that too. But in taking care of the Veterans Cemetery, as I've been so privileged to do for the last 7.5 years, I've had a number of folks come and ask me what's happening in Fort Hill Cemetery. My purview. I have an acre and a half worth of veterans already to take care of. The more I got asked, the more I said, well, sad to say, if someone doesn't do something, it will not be done. So on July 29th, we had 28 parties from the Civil Air Patrol led by Lieutenant Ella Kidd that cleaned over 100 headstones, and we found 7 veterans' headstones in that 100. We had children from 5 years old up to 18, 7 parents, 2 or 3 members from the Veterans Honor Guard. In an hour and a half, we achieved 100 headstones. In the meantime, after that, I had one of the parties there ask me, how are we going to try to do the rest of them? We've got to have water to clean it off. I contacted Chief over at Cleveland Fire Department. He said, got an answer for you. You got a fire hydrant right there behind Boys and Girls Club? We'll take care of it. You let me know the date, we'll get you water. Amen. We've got another opportunity at another location in there to maybe put another hydrant in and see if we can't work kind of a big circle from that one hydrant. The other items, we're not real sure how we're going to be able to do them, but they have been started. We're going to go again on the 26th of this month. I've already put the word out for the good folks and whoever's been able to help me in times past. We're going to go for about 2 hours that morning. Hopefully it'll be a little cooler. So I saw a lot of red faces when we were doing the other ones. So praise the Lord. I pray we'll maybe get another 75, maybe 100, 150 headstones done. But we've got to run water hose 450 feet from where I have it down there.
Wow.
The third item that I was so kindly reminded is Wreaths Across America will be again this year. It'll be our 5th year. We've been so honored by having our good citizenry here provide more than 500 veterans wreaths. And last year we sent 100 down to Chattanooga National. 400 was all I needed. This year I may not send them. We're finding more veterans' headstones and we want to honor them during the time of Christmas. So if you would like to be a part of that, just continue to go online to wreathsacrossAmerica.org/TNVRAD, and you can honor our good veterans and families here in Bradley County with a Christmas wreath that will be placed middle of December and then picked up the middle of January. May I have any questions?
Any questions from the members of the council?
Thank you so very much for your
I
time.
appreciate your service and what you do
Thank
for
you,
our
Mr. Chairman.
community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We're grateful for your service. This is now also the time for public comments under this special presentation and public comments section. If there's anyone here from the audience who wishes to address the council, now is the time. If you'll indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, we will go on to item 6, which is hearing petitions and communications. Item 6A is a public hearing to consider a request by Ava Castillo for consideration of an ordinance to zone about 2.10 acres, more or less, located at 4020 North Ocoee Street from PI, Professional Institutional, to CN, Commercial Neighborhood Zoning District. It's in Tax Map 42G, was approved by the Planning Commission 7-0 with 2 absent. I'll now declare this public hearing to be open. Mr. Barnell, do you have exciting updates for us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Super exciting as always. The request here is aimed at the existing business to be able to provide some overnight lodging as a part of the component of their spa. So instead of just being a day spa, it would be would have this component added to it. The benefit of the neighborhood commercial zoning is that it has several built-in regulations about, noise coming off the premises out of late night hours, things like that, landscaping. Particular parcel in question has room for them to expand to add this kind of use. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval, and staff's recommendation is approval as well.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Barnell, for those updates. We have opened the hearing. Would anyone like to speak in favor of this request? Speak now. Seeing none, would anyone like to speak in opposition to this request? And like sign, seeing none, we will declare this public hearing to be closed. Item B is a public hearing to hear public comments concerning a request by Pleasant Grove Properties for consideration of an ordinance to amend PUD 19 zoning ordinance development standards, which is located on Sunset Drive in Tax Map 42, P as in Paul. It was approved by Planning Commission 6-0, 1 recused, 2 absent. We will now declare this public hearing to be open. Mr. Barnell, Do you have any reports from the staff?
Yes, sir. The primary things to kind of point out about this request is the number of units actually dropped, so the density dropped. They are going to be using existing infrastructure in place of adding new, but that existing infrastructure will have to be improved. Another component is that there will be, I guess, an additional amount of property going to the daycare building as opposed to residential development areas. So those are the components we looked at. Planning Commission did vote unanimously, those voting to recommend approval, and staff's recommendation is approval as well. If there's any specific questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Farnell. This hearing has been opened. Would anyone like to speak in favor of this request? Mr. Berry, although we know who you are, if you'll please identify yourself for the minutes.
Very engineers. I think during the 1 o'clock meeting it was mentioned, this is an older PUD that went through some of the big discussions years ago. At that time, it was occupied by the school system. The school system was moving out in preparation for moving to High Center. So it really wasn't a use determined yet for the main commercial building that's on Sunset Road. Since then, that building is scheduled to be occupied by a daycare center, which we're very excited about. I think it's a great use for the city and the community as well. As part of that, we're looking at the PUD and how to use the rest of the property in a complementary way to the daycare. In the previous PUD, they put some of the parking and roads and driveways behind the units, which basically was between the residential units and the daycare. So the cars would be on the daycare side of the buildings. Because of the daycare, because of the green space that we want to add to the back of the daycare, we are reversing that. We're keeping the cars on McNabb, which is a dead-end road. The previous PUD didn't have any improvements to McNabb. This does. It has widenings, it has sidewalks. So overall, we see this as just really a big win for the neighborhood, and hopefully makes this development a little bit more cohesive.
Any questions for Mr. Berry? Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in favor of this request? Seeing none, like sign, does anyone like to speak in opposition of this request before us? And seeing none, we will declare this public hearing to be closed. Item C is a public hearing to hear public comments concerning a request by B&J Properties for consideration of an ordinance to amend PUD 41 to include 16 townhomes as an allowable use located at 443 Menace Road, tax map 58, approved by the Planning Commission 6-0, 1 recused, 2 absent. We'll now declare this public hearing to be open. Mr. Farnell, we look forward to hearing your report.
Thank you, sir. This one has gone through a couple of changes over the past probably 12 months. There is an existing house on the property that is deemed, I guess, not as up to code as they originally anticipated, and they are removing. I believe my understanding is their plan would be to remove that structure. There's 12 townhomes already approved within this PUD. They're only asking for one more quad of them, just to make it 16 as opposed to the 12. All 12 of those will be accessed by an internal drive system and not right on Dennis Road. And these are included in that internal drive system. Planning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval, and staff's recommendation is approval as well. Happy to answer any specific questions on this one if you've got them.
Thank you, Mr. Farnell. Any questions for Mr. Farnell? Seeing none, would anyone like to speak in favor of this request? Please identify yourself for the minutes.
Been very engineers. It was a very good summary. The previous PUD has 12 townhomes already in it. The hope was to take the existing house, renovate it, sell it. As they got in there, the house has got mold, rot, too far gone to be able to renovate. So it's going to be removed, and we'll expand and have 4 more townhomes next to it. That's all this is.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Any questions for Mr. Berry? Seeing none, would anyone else like to speak in favor of this request? Yes, sir. Please identify yourself for the minutes. Thank you.
Danny Britt, and I live in Chestnut Grove subdivision, which is just north of the development that Dan talked about. And I represent the Chestnut Grove Homeowners Association, and we're not here to speak in favor of that or oppose, but what I am asking is for the city, if they're gonna move forward with road work on Benton Pike and Michigan Avenue. I was here last year, I made comments about it, and was assured, yes, that will happen. Is that gonna happen?
The answer is yes. Mr. Fivas, I know that update was scheduled for 1 o'clock and we didn't have that update.
Yeah, and in large part, a lot of your comments last year generated a concern, so we teamed with the county and the city and the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and we did a study that outlines all the things that need to happen on Michigan Avenue, and we actually had it on the agenda today, and we ran out of time on that, so that's the first part, is figure out what you need to do and work towards that. Now, we also have another project at Michigan Avenue and 20th Street all the way to Minnis, and that project is being designed right now, and that whole intersection will be redone and constructed. Our person in charge of that is not here today, so I don't have all the necessarily details, but so there's the big plan, then there's a specific project to help with the conditions out there.
Yeah, that's an intersection, those are very much needed.
We agree.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for coming today. We've heard from 2 members of the audience. I'll now ask if there's anyone in opposition to this request. Please speak now. Seeing none, we will declare this public hearing to be closed. Item D is a public hearing to hear public comments concerning a request by the Stewart Family Properties LLC for consideration of a plan of service, a resolution to annex, and an ordinance to zone 13 acres of property located on Urbane Road from unincorporated county to PUD 46. This would be on tax map 42, approved by the Planning Commission 6-0. We'll now declare the public hearing to be open. Mr. Varnell, we'll hear your staff report.
Thanks, sir. So this public hearing is for the plan of service, the annexation, as well as the zoning. I just want to make sure that that's clear. This is for all 3 components instead of 3 different ones. This is a annexation request that will include up to 140 units, but once we go through the development process, we'll see exactly what that number falls into. There's 3 different components. Some of that's townhomes, some of it's kind of cottage-style homes. The Planning Commission on this one voted 6-0 to recommend approval of each item, and staff's recommendation is for approval as well. There were some caveats and some items that the city wanted the city council to look at. The right-of-way width from 40 to 50. The Planning Commission had, I believe, agreed at 45 at the time. The other component was the addition of a amenity of some type in the open space for those cottage homes. Those were the primary things, and then some kind of language or caveat regarding the long-term ownership of the cottage homes, kind of at the front portion. And if there's any questions specifically for staff on that, I'm happy to answer them at this point.
How do you calculate the common space on the number of pieces of property, or the number in the property, or the size of the property each one?
Usually it's a percentage of the acreage, like 10%, 20%, 25%, depending, and so that's the normal process we
Rule
follow.
of thumb?
Any more questions from the council? Thank you, Mr. Varnell.
Thank you.
We'll now open it up for anyone who'd like to speak in favor of this request by the Stewart Family Properties.
Ben Berry, Berry Engineers. Excited about this one. This is a very unique development that really incorporates adds density, but also incorporates some things that are going to make it a good community to live in. Has a townhome component that will be owner occupied. Also has a single-family component that will be a single-family for rent style. It's density in a good place. So you have density on a road that can handle it. You have density next to amenities that are already there, the YMCA, the pool, the county park, pickleball courts. They're just all right across the street. So it's excited about this one. I want to go through those. I think there were 3 questions that were presented at the 1 o'clock meeting, and I'll just go through those in the discussion that was had at the planning commission. First one was a question about the right-of-way widths. Planning commission approved, it was mentioned, planning commission approved language, I believe it was for 40 feet for roads and 45 if the road has on-street parking. And what that represents is 40 feet for a road is a standard width for subdivision right-of-ways. It's what designed nearly all of our single-family subdivisions and townhome subdivisions at 40-foot right-of-way. You have, in that 40 feet, you're able to incorporate the road width, sidewalks, utilities, in addition to a utility easement, which is, so including utilities, whenever you do a subdivision, they have utility easement outside of the right-of-way. So as far as hardscape infrastructure, it all fits in the right-of-way, and as far as utilities, it fits within the right-of-way plus the easement. And 40 feet is all that you need to do that, 45 if you have on-street parking. So really that's a design issue, and so I want the PUD to reflect the minimum standard that is needed, and then if more room is needed, then we go through the design just like we always do. We add more room where we need to, but we didn't really want it as part of the PUD to set that bar unnecessarily too high and waste some valuable land there. We really want that land put into open space where it can be used, which we do have strategically placed. So that was one of the right-of-way issues. Is there any questions on that one? Any concerns? Planning Commission reviewed the 3. The second question came up regarding to amenities as to whether there should be some sort of pavilion or grilling area incorporated into the development. As far as amenities go, the main amenity that is being provided is open space. So, and it's not just general open space, around the perimeter on a hillside, wooded, where nobody can really use it. It is centrally located right in the middle of the development. It's land that could otherwise be used for buildings, but it's right in the middle of the development where everybody can walk out of their front porch, have room for their dogs, use it however they wish. So it's not leftover land. It is valuable land right in the heart of the development. And that's really what we're going for, is to leave land that can be used however the neighbors want to utilize it. We don't want to put a pavilion or grilling areas. These are homes. They have their own backyards, their own grills. And there's, and going back, there's amenities right across the street. There's a giant pavilion over at the county park. There's pickleball courts, there's room, there's, this development is really piggybacking off of some of those built-in amenities that are just right across the street. Is there any questions?
Any questions from the council? Seeing none?
And then the last one was a question about ownership. I think this is, maybe the question is specific to the single-family homes that are kind of stacked, but there's a component, there's a townhome component on the north side, and then kind of in the middle, there's what I'm going to refer to as the single-family for rent concept, and it's the cottage homes that are stacked uniquely. They are not designed in a way that would meet subdivision requirements, so they cannot be platted individually and sold individually. So that is a type of apartment development. It's just detached. Instead of having shared walls or people living above you or below you, you have your own house. But it's an apartment development, single ownership, single lot line. It'll be one single parcel. It couldn't be subdivided according to, at least, it doesn't meet our subdivision regulations to be subdivided any further. So hopefully that addresses maybe the concern.
All right, any questions from the council for Mr. Berry?
I have some for Robert.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Berry. Mr. Farnell? Councilman, you're...
So I was looking through our packet here. I need you to, I don't see that it says 45 in our packet.
So it's 40 and 45, that's what it should say in the document that was sent, clearly wasn't the right word document, but that is what the planning commission voted on.
40 and 45.
It was 40 and let's see, he said it just a minute ago correctly, and I'm backwards, but it's 45 with the on-street parking area included. Because there, if you look in that middle where the townhomes are, there's on-street parking included, that was an original request from the city and made sense.
So it's 40 everywhere that there is not
That's
on-street
correct,
parking.
yeah. If I can get it out correctly, that's what I'm
Okay.
trying to say.
Does the long-term ownership make sense that it's all as one, treated as one?
So there's different components, so that part is referring to the very small cottage homes in the middle, so there's townhomes on each end, and there are different ways to do apartments, this is one of those ways. He is correct, it wouldn't meet the subregs in their current form, whether or not somebody would ask for variance 30 years from now, I can't speak to, but, you see what I'm saying? There might be one or two that could meet minimum lot size, but I would, I haven't looked at it technically enough to know that.
That's all, Mayor. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Varnell. We've heard staff report. We've heard favor of this request. Anyone else in favor of this request? Like sign. We will ask if there's anyone here to speak in opposition to this request by the Stewart Family Properties, LLC. Seeing none, we will declare this hearing closed. Item E on the agenda is to hear public comments concerning a request by John and Joan Gilliland for consideration of a plan of service, a resolution to annex, an ordinance to zone about 29.66 acres on property located on a water level highway from unincorporated county to CH Highway Commercial Zoning. It includes a portion of tax map 58K. It was approved by the Planning Commission 7-0. I'll now declare this hearing to be open. Mr. Varnell, we'll hear your staff report.
Thank you, sir. Again, this is a plan of service, an annexation, and a zoning public hearing, so just to make that clear. This is a portion of the property, 29.66 acres. This is the portion of the property that's included within the urban growth boundary. They can now request to have the remainder, but we go through this process. It's a step-by-step process when they're on the edge. They are asking for this 29.6 acres, which is right there on the water level highway, 4-lane divided highway, state highway with federal designation, for commercial highway zoning. And through review, through the plan of service, the associated costs for sewer extension and things like that were clear. There's meetings that have taken place, discussions had, and the Planning Commission voted 7-0 to recommend approval of each item independently, and city staff recommends approval of each item as well. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Varnell. Any questions from the staff? Councilman Webb?
Is the developer paying for the cost of the sewer on this project?
Certainly, the developer, the existing property owner are involved in that process, yes. I don't think that they've all agreed on how that works yet, but that is the intent. Yes, that's correct.
Anything further, Councilman? Great. I think there was also an email that the council received about this request, but I don't see it in my packet, but I will take it. I remember there was a family member that sent an email to the council for it to be entered into the record. We'll find that and put that in there. Christie, I'll get that to you as soon as I find it. All right, thank you, Mr. Farnell. Anyone like to speak in favor of this request? Speak now. Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this request? Like sign. Seeing none, we will declare the public hearing to be closed. Takes us to item F, today's public hearing to hear public comments concerning a request by the City of Cleveland for consideration of an ordinance to amend the Cleveland Municipal Code, Title 14 Zoning Ordinance, by adding Chapter 13 to Title 14 Zoning and Land Use Control to provide regulations for short-term rentals. We will go ahead and open this. Mr. Varnell, if you could explain just for the record
Yeah.
what we are going to do or not do on this
There
item.
was some discussion, a little bit late in the game about where this thing lands, whether it's in the zoning ordinance, city code, things like that. Through that process, we need to make it crystal clear where it belongs, and so we kind of pulled back a little bit. But the intent here is not to regulate where you can put these things. It's more of a way to regulate if there are issues, make sure that the life safety, things are in place for each structure where, so if we've got people coming to town to stay, they're staying in a place that's, can be approved by code by our city staff. It also ensures that they're paying their hotel, motel taxes and, things of that nature. So we're not really out here to talk about, you can't put it in this place or that place or whatever. But if you do it, then there's certain rules you're gonna follow and guidelines that we have just in case there's problems.
Any questions for Mr. Varnell from the council? Thank you, Mr. Varnell.
Thank you.
We will now declare this public hearing to be open. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in favor of this request? Seeing none, is there anyone who'd like to speak in opposition? And like sign, seeing none, we will declare this public hearing to be closed. Takes us to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. This was included in your packets prior to the meeting and discussed at the 1 o'clock work session. The consent agenda does require a motion from the council.
So moved.
That is a proper motion by Councilman Hughes, properly seconded by Councilman May. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? If not, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Hughes,
Aye.
Councilman May,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson, Councilwoman McKenzie, Councilman Festus, Councilman Cassidy,
Aye.
Councilman Webb.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. Item number 8 is unfinished business, of which there is none. Takes us to item number 9. We missed our opportunity at the 1 o'clock, so now we will start with reports from council members, starting with Vice Mayor Johnson. Vice Mayor? Report. Thank you, sir. Councilwoman McKenzie. Thank you, madam. Councilman Estes.
No.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Castida.
Yes, Mayor, I got one good news thing. Vice Mayor has been Vice Mayor for how many years now, Vice Mayor? It's 27, 28? 29 years. And through those 29 years, he has a park named after him and other accomplishments, and I can call my dear friend on this part. But also this week, I found out the 100 Black Men Golf Tournament, they actually named the tournament after him in his honor. So it's a great feat for Vice Mayor on that part and representing the community that long. So congratulations, Vice
Really,
Mayor.
what Mr. Castro wants to say, Mr. Mayor, is
Yeah.
who won the tournament?
No, I didn't say that. I just.
That's what you're wanting to say.
Vice Mayor won the tournament. He's the winner
You-
all the way around.
You won the tournament.
I could have won it without Vice Mayor's grandson, and Bill Estes' son, and then Harvey too. So, but Vice Mayor was out there coaching us all the way around.
Great. They shot 16 under par.
15 under par.
16.
Don't cut me off the stroke now, Mr. Hughes. 16.
It was a great day.
Yeah, great tournament, great turnout on that part. But in honor of Avery Johnson, I wanted the Vice Mayor to. They actually named the tournament after him. So.
It's indeed an honor. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman May, you're recognized.
Nothing.
Councilman Hughes.
I just want to mention to Chris Miller, thank you for your work with the cameras. And I would like to encourage the city to go from Raider Drive. You said the next component would be Raider Drive, starting there and going north. And I want to encourage the city to do that. And also, I heard in our discussion that the LPRs, we're getting ready to do that, right? Will all of those be in the ingress of our city?
They're gonna be in different areas. I think we have 19 of them coming overall as part of that collaborative grant with Bradley County. But per the guidelines of the grant, they have to be on state routes. So some of them, yes, are in those areas, but they were pretty specific on the exact locations. We had to place them, they all actually had to be approved by the state.
All of those are Motorola,
Yes,
is that right?
sir.
And Henderson puts all of them in the ingress, and this is the way that they control a lot of traffic coming into their city that is really not wanted.
Yes, sir. Yes.
People
And
have
that was
stolen
part of our
cars.
strategy. That's part of our strategy as well, make sure we have all those, so we can basically see who's coming in and out of our city, especially on the main thoroughways.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, can I- it's-
Thank you, Councilman Hughes. Councilman
mostly
Cassidy.
Mostly off the interstate, correct? I mean, that's where the
Yes.
most traffic, I would think that we give them egress coming off the interstate, y'all know who's coming off the interstate,
Yeah,
coming into our
the
community.
Paul Hub is not a state route,
Yeah,
so,
that's used quite a bit from
yeah,
Athens and
so
stuff.
that was a request that we even asked.
Paul Hub
for
used to be a
kind of
state route.
overlooked or waiver, and
Yeah.
that
I don't know how we-
Yeah,
On the other-
that's well-traveled more than any other exit we have over here, I think, except for 20.
I do know.
The other exit is 20 and
Get
25.
the fences down. Yeah. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Councilman Casta and Councilman Hughes. Councilman Webb, you're recognized.
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. That takes us to item number 10 on the agenda, which is new business and ordinances. Item 10A, ordinance 2023-26, abandoning a section of unopened right-of-way located between Pugh Street and Lang Street Northeast. It was approved by the Planning Commission 7-0 and does require a motion from the council. So moved.
Second.
Proper motion by Councilman May, properly seconded by Councilman Estes. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman May?
Aye.
Councilman Estes? Vice Mayor Johnson? Councilwoman McKenzie? Councilman Cassidy?
Aye.
Councilman Hughes?
Aye.
Councilman Webb? Carries 7-0.
Thanks, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. Next item is item B, zoning ordinance 2023-29, concerning a request by Eva Castello for consideration of an ordinance to rezone 2.1 acres, 4020 North Ocoee Street, from PI Professional Institutional to CN Commercial Neighborhood. This is on tax map 42G and was approved by the Planning Commission 7-0 and does require a motion from the council.
So moved.
Second.
Did you second that, Councilman Hughes?
Yes.
Proper motion by Councilman Webb, properly seconded by Councilman Hughes. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Webb? Councilman Hughes? Vice Mayor Johnson? Councilwoman McKenzie? Councilman Estes? Councilman Cassidy?
Aye.
Councilman May?
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Thanks, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. Item C, zoning ordinance 2023-30, concerning a request by Pleasant Grove Properties for consideration of an ordinance to amend PUD 19 development standards located at Sunset Drive on tax map 42.
So moved.
That's a proper motion by Councilman May. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly seconded by Vice Mayor Avery Johnson. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman May?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson?
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie? Councilman Estes? Councilman Cassidy?
Aye.
Councilman Hughes?
Aye.
Councilman Webb?
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Thanks, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. Item D, zoning ordinance 2023-31, concerning a request by B&J Properties for consideration of an ordinance to amend PUD 41 to include 16 townhomes as an allowable use located at 443 Menace Road, tax map 58. It does require a motion from this council.
So moved.
Second.
It's a proper motion by Councilman May, properly seconded by Councilman Estes. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman May?
Aye.
Councilman Estes? Vice Mayor Johnson? Councilwoman McKenzie? Councilman Cassidy?
Aye.
Councilman Hughes?
Aye.
Councilman Webb?
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Motion
Mayor,
Christie, one thing you could add, I did want to add something to the record on that. I appreciate trying to save the home on the original PUD. I just appreciate that effort first and foremost, so thanks. I just want that in the record.
Certainly. Thank you, Councilman. Next item is item E, Resolution 2023-81, concerning a request by Stewart Family Properties LLC for consideration of a plan of service for 13 acres of property located on Urbane Road, including tax map 42, approved by the Planning Commission and does require a motion from the council.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Hughes. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly seconded by Councilman May. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman May.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie. Councilman Estes.
Aye.
Councilman Cassidy.
Aye.
Councilman Webb. It carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Next item F, Resolution 2023-82, concerning request from Stewart Family Properties for consideration of a resolution to annex 13 acres of property located on Urbane Road, tax map 42, approved by the Planning Commission, and it does require a motion from the council.
So moved. Second.
Proper motion by Councilman Webb, properly seconded by Councilman Estes. Proper motion, properly seconded. No discussion. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Webb.
Aye.
Councilman Estes.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie. Councilman Cassidy.
Aye.
Councilman May.
Aye.
Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
That carries 7-0.
Thanks, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. Next item is item G, zoning ordinance 2023-32, concerning request by Stewart Family Properties for consideration of an ordinance to zone 13 acres more or less located at Urbane Road from unincorporated county to PUD 46. It includes a portion of tax map 42 and will require a motion from this council.
So moved.
It's a proper motion by Councilman Hughes. Is there a second?
Second.
That's a proper motion by Councilman May. Proper motion, properly seconded. If there's no discussion, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman May.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie. Councilman Estes. Councilman Cassidy.
Aye.
Councilman Webb. It carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Next item is Resolution H. It's Resolution 2023-83 concerning a request by John and Joan Gilliland for consideration of a plan of service for 29.66 acres for property located at Water Level Highway. Its tax map 58K was approved by the Planning Commission 7-0. And before I ask for the motion, staff has indicated that an email from Sarah Kane has been entered into the record and will be distributed into the minutes. This does require a proper motion from the council.
So moved.
It's a proper motion by Vice Mayor Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly seconded by Councilman May. Proper motion, properly seconded. If there's no discussion, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Aye.
Councilman May.
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie. Councilman Estes. Councilman Cassidy.
Aye.
Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman Webb. That carries 7-0.
Mayor, can I ask a question, a point of order?
Yes, sir.
This may not be a point of actual order. On item G, Mr. Kimball, Mr. Biles, what is in our packet is a little different than the planning commission. So what did we actually vote on? There were 3 issues at bay. Were we voting on the exact language that the planning commission approved?
If you look at
Yeah,
page
help me out.
166 of your packet,
Yeah, that's where I am.
that's what the planning commission approved. And that's what Robert was explaining to you, where it's highlighted
Right.
at, look at page 166. It says, in general, a 40-foot, 45-foot right-of-way is acceptable for all public roads within the PUD except where parking is on the street. Where on-street parking is included, the right-of-way should be 50 feet. That's what you voted on, and that's what the planning commission approved, and that's what Robert was discussing. Where
I thought it was 45.
So it's
I'm not sure that's
45.
what the planning commission approved.
40 with 5 foot with parking on the street.
Which also will bring up my question about amenities, and then the long-term ownership.
Let's be clear that if that's not, if this is what was sent to Christie by the staff, assume post planning commission, so we probably need to clarify that.
Mayor, this really does become a point of order. Can I get this
This
straight
is-
today?
This is definitely a point of order now. So we will back up to item G, zoning ordinance 2023-32. There was a proper motion properly seconded. There's been a point of order requested. Mr. Fivas, I will defer to your direction if we need to reconsider our actions.
Who has the record of what was actually determined at the planning commission?
I'm trying to get the minutes right now.
I would say to come back to that at the end of the meeting and give Robert a few minutes to look at the meeting, and then we can, I think the intent would be to do whatever the planning commission said, for sure.
Thanks, that's what I thought, that's what I was asking
If
Mr.
the planning
Kimball.
commission approved it, it comes here to you with their recommendation.
Right.
And if you want to change it, then you would include that in your motion.
Mr. Councilman Estes, are you okay if we add it to the end?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So that takes us back to item I, which is resolution 2023-84 concerning request by John and Joan Gilliland for consideration of a resolution to annex 29.66 acres of property located at Water Level Highway, tax map 58K, approved by the Planning Commission 7-0, and does require a motion from this council. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Proper motion by Councilman May. Is there a second? Properly seconded by Councilman Estes. Proper motion, proper second. If there's no discussion, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman May?
Aye.
Councilman Estes? Aye. Vice Mayor Johnson?
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie? Aye. Councilman Cassidy?
Aye.
Councilman Hughes?
Aye.
Councilman Webb?
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. Item J is a ordinance 2023-33 concerning a request by John Gilliland for consideration of an ordinance to zone 29.66 acres located at Water Level Highway from unincorporated county to CH Commercial Highway Commercial Zoning District, excuse me. It is approved by the Planning Commission 7-0 and does require a motion from this council.
So moved.
Proper motion by Councilman May. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly seconded by Councilman Hughes. Proper motion properly seconded. If there's no discussion, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman May?
Aye.
Councilman Hughes?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson?
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie? Aye. Councilman Estes? Aye. Councilman Cassidy?
Aye.
Councilman Webb?
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Item K, discussion of ordinance 2023-34 concerning request by the City of Cleveland for consideration of an ordinance to amend the Cleveland Municipal Code, Title 14 zoning ordinance by adding Chapter 13 to Title 14 zoning and land use control to provide regulations for short-term rentals. Mr. Fivas, this was the item that was under discussion of whether or not we would proceed.
I think Robert should come up and talk to you about what the ordinance will do and get your feedback. And then if that's what you want to do, then we put it on the right process to bring it back in the right way.
Mr. Barnell, seems we have you doing two things at once.
That's every day.
Multitask.
Good to hear from you.
Doing just fine. So this ordinance is going to require inspections. First of all, there is an associated permit fee. Business license, you must pay your hotel tax, just like any other hotel. And then it requires, when they come for the permit, city staff, the building staff would inspect the property for life safety related, ADA related things. Now, there's certain conditions that they look at and it would probably be primarily the space that they were renting out. This ordinance also looks at nuisance issues, which we felt was probably the strongest point of it. It provides kind of a detailed process if there are nuisances that staff goes through, and then that permit can be revoked by vote of a public body and public hearing process. So if there are continuous problems, police, it's specific, it's about the number of police calls, loud noise, late hours, whatever, those kind of criteria that we already have within the code, it's, this is built specifically for those short-term rentals. It gives the city a resource, because hotels are gonna be located in the commercial zone. For the short-term rental, that's gonna be anywhere where there's a residential property. So we've gotta protect the existing residents around them, that's the way we looked at it, and that's how we
Yeah,
thought of it.
Robert, what are other communities doing?
So the city of Chattanooga is all over the map on what they've been doing. They've changed it a few times. At one point, they had designated areas you could do it in, but then those outside that area found problems with that. Then it was specific to zoning. This ordinance that you're looking at is one that was originally drafted by the city of Collegedale staff at the time that I was a part of, and they did pass it, and they did implement it. With cooperation of the online vendors who list these places. So, I don't know many smaller cities that aren't urban that do this in any form or fashion, but they also don't have the volume and the numbers of these things that we're starting to see. Farragut does kind of a similar process, but they always tie it to the zone and kind of trying to regulate where you can do it, as opposed to just saying any zone works, but here's the caveats you have to meet, which.
Well, what's kind of odd to me is in historical zoning, you
Yes.
can't have a bed and breakfast,
That's correct.
but you can have short-term rental.
I think the historic district is, and forgive me for not knowing 100% for sure, but I believe there's caveats against it there too.
Well,
Yeah.
they're having it because we don't have any.
We have no way to know.
Yeah.
And what this does is
Yeah.
give us the opportunity to at least, we know where they are, and if
There's nothing in the historic ordinance that,
just bed and breakfast, I guess is the caveat, which is,
The
Councilman
if I can,
Estes, yeah.
Yeah, a couple things, because there's quite a few in the historic. I saw one this morning, because with all the lead students coming in and parents, there's, I've received a lot of this, and I appreciate, Joe, you sending it out, and then you answering my question about the 30 months, John, I appreciate that. You mentioned nuisance, and that this came from Collegedale. It talks about violating generally applicable local law 3 times. Why 3 strikes? Why not make it 1 or 2?
I can answer that. So the state legislature was studying in 2018 whether to preempt all local regulation of these things. They didn't do that. What they did do is they gave, I'm gonna call it, I don't like the word grandfather, because it means different things to different people, but there's 2 ways a short-term rental can be grandfathered. One is if the local jurisdiction had regulations and a licensing scheme at the time, which Cleveland did not. The other is if prior to the effective date of the ordinance or the state law, whichever's later, one of these was in existence, and that has a statutory definition in state law, and they paid the applicable tax 6 of the preceding 12 months. They are basically exempted out for certain things, but they're not totally exempt from what you're talking about. You can do licensing and regulating, but not saying whether they can or can't go there. They can't be prohibited.
Yes. I'm good with the 30 months.
It also but the state law goes on to say that any regulation that you pass can't conflict with the state law, and that 3 or more, the 3 violations is also in the state code.
Oh, gosh.
It's the same place where the 30 months is. It's the same code.
We can't be more restrictive.
So, yeah, John provided myself and my staff with the state law, and what we tried to do is provision something that didn't regulate where it went, but it allowed us a level of
Control,
overview and
Yeah.
permitting.
yeah.
So I can say to my neighbors, you
Bill,
know,
in the state law, it says, this part supersedes any local ordinance, resolution, regulation, rule, or other requirement of any type enacted, maintained, or enforced by a local governing body in conflict with this law. Okay? So if you're in that status, and we don't know which ones are, because we don't know where they are, and whether they pay tax. So that's the trick, right? But everybody that's been passing these local laws always mirrors that language that's in the state statute.
so I know if we pass this today or in 2 weeks or in 2
You
years.
wouldn't pass it today, let me explain why. It's in the zoning part of the code, the state code. There's a separate state law that says if you amend the zoning, it's gotta go to the planning commission first for recommendation, then it comes back to you for legislative vote.
What I'm trying to say, this gives me verbiage for my neighbors. Say, we're mirroring state law, and we can't be more restrictive. That helps. If this,
But, however, remember, those are rules that are generally applicable to everybody. So you could have, I'm gonna use an example, noise violations repetitively time and time again, which could result in multiple citations, which ultimately could get you to the 3. Okay, so.
But John, you're saying we don't vote on it today, it has to go to the planning commission?
Yes, it's-
They have to
this
make
has to be-
recommendations, come, okay.
so is there a window, Mr. Kimball, on 3 violations, 3 over a time period?
It says 3 or more, which statutory language says for which their appeal rights have exhausted. In other words, if they're cited, found to have violated the law, and they've exhausted their appeal rights, or they appealed and it's upheld, then that's one. It doesn't say over what time.
And no reset?
No within 12 months or anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's,
No,
3,
to my colleagues, I'd like to kick this back to the planning commission and start the
Right.
process.
but
But
it hadn't been
there's-
to the planning commission yet.
Yeah, kick it, that's where it starts. It's
So-
gotta start
I
there.
don't know.
I think the intent was, started out to send it there and then.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have the vote.
John, does that require a
No.
vote to send it back?
No,
Just if we have a discussion and we say,
Yeah.
yeah, we can vote on it when it gets here.
yeah.
There's
Councilman
no
Webb?
action you need to take. It needs to go to the planning commission, just so that box has been checked. So if anyone were ever
Yeah.
to challenge that, well, this is a zoning ordinance and you didn't send it to your planning commission first, that box has been checked.
Okay.
Councilman Webb, you're
Yeah.
recognized.
Robert, I just had a question. I'm curious if the online vendors, I know there's 2 major ones,
yes.
but do we get cooperation or will we get cooperation from those? 'Cause
Uh,
isn't that normally where the taxes are
well-
collected?
That's correct. One of them is
Verbo and Airbnb?
more apt to work with local jurisdictions than the other, but we'll push for getting everybody as a partner, absolutely.
Do we pretty well know where they're
Yeah, they
located
put a
already
piece
in
on
the city?
the line.
We're
I read
building
that
that
they
database.
put,
We've got a good sense.
they
We've
think
seen the
they're on their
numbers.
way out because of restrictions that
So,
cities
yes,
are putting on.
but we don't have
that
an
they
exact
can't
list
operate
yet, but we're working
like
on
they can operate.
that.
Do
because-
other cities have anything in their ordinance that addresses when one of these online vendors does not cooperate?
No.
There is a separate part of the TCA
TCA.
that's called the short-term rental marketplace. And basically, the Department of Revenue requires Airbnb and VDRO to remit the tax directly to them. And that's the state law.
So any enforcement would be at the state level?
The cooperation, yeah.
Statute says the online marketplace entities are supposed to register with the Department of Revenue. That's what the statute uses the word register. What we discovered, Christie asked the Department of Revenue if they have a list of what comes from each individual unit, and what the Department of Revenue sent back was, no, we just get a total from the county. Lump sum.
So, yeah, that's what we would like is a list, so we're gonna go to the vendors and ask for a list, but they, that would guarantee that our numbers are accurate.
Yeah.
but we're still reliant upon the state to send it down to us like the 911 money they're supposed to be sending to us.
To be honest with you, Mayor, I didn't look at what happens when they get the money and what they do with it. We were trying to figure out.
I think I know
they
the
had a
answer to that
list
one.
of
All right.
people that were remitting.
Thank you, Mr. Barnell. Any other questions? Yes,
I have
Councilman
another
Lowe.
question. If memory serves me right, if you have a duplex, it's assessed at tax purposes for 40% as opposed to residential of 25.
Unless you live in town.
Unless you're a resident of one half of it.
Okay, that's what I was asking. If you're a resident of half of it, it doesn't apply.
Mr. Barnell, I believe we're going to kick this back to the Planning Commission.
And that's fine, and if anybody has thoughts or direction they'd like to share with me, please do at any point.
I have many thoughts about this.
None? Thank you.
All right, this takes us to item
Can I
L.
ask one more?
Yes,
Robert,
Councilman Estes.
As you were researching this, do you think Airbnb and VRBO are on their way out due to regulation?
No, I believe.
I'm not saying Tennessee only, I'm talking 30,000 feet.
I don't think so. I think they're adapting to the regulation and, you know, I think, because there's many places just like us that aren't trying to regulate where they can be. It's just we want to have the ability that make sure it's safe. You know, and that's what I see.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Barnell. All right, takes us to item L, ordinance 2023-35, amending Cleveland Municipal Code Title 5, Chapter 7, Hotel Motel Tax, Section 5-703, to amend the rate from 4% to 3.5%. It's in your packets on pages 204 and 205.
So moved.
Proper motion by Councilman May. Is there a second? Properly seconded by Councilman Cassada.
I would like to ask, again, like I mentioned, what's the breakdown, what's the breakdown county percent? What's the breakdown city? What's the breakdown state?
I have numbers for everyone, but I can give you kind of a select, or kind of an idea of what the corridors look like. Coming down your corridors from I-75 and from Johnson City, the city rates, just the pure city rates, not combined, is Johnson City is 7, Kingsport is 7, Chattanooga is 4, Athens is 4, Bristol is 5, Lenore City is 5, Dalton, Georgia is a little bit different way, but their number I think is 7. Murfreesboro is, well, that doesn't.
That's good enough. So that's city municipality rate.
Those are municipality rates. So then you look at county rates. Bradley County is the second highest in the state at 7%.
Second highest in
There's
the
only
state?
there's only one other county that has more, which is Cumberland County is at 7.5. Montgomery has, they're 8, but they share it 50-50 with the city of Clarksville. And then combined rates, the county and the city is, Greenville is 11% combined city-county. And then you have 17 cities that are at 10, Collinsville, Murfreesboro, Germantown, Dixon, Fayetteville, Lenore City, Cooksville, McMinnville, and I can read them all, and I have all the documentation. So around that 10% is fairly popular.
All right, that's good enough. Why would these people come, Joe, I saw your memo, why would the hotel operators come and ask you rather than asking the county? If the county is the second highest and we're the lowest on the I-75 corridor, aren't they asking the wrong people for a break?
That's my question as to why we have it on the agenda.
We're already at the lowest, yet they come and ask us rather than ask the body that's at the highest. I'd like to make a substitute motion. That we approve a half cent. We approve this based on the county dropping a half cent. Or more.
All right, so,
Mayor, can I?
so let me just parliamentary where we are. We have a motion by Councilman May. It's properly seconded by Councilman Cassada we now have a substitute motion by Councilman Estes. Councilman Estes, your substitute motion would require a second.
I know. But I'm making a point, even without the second, to my colleagues. They're asking the wrong people. You know, come on. We're high why? Because the county is high, not because the city's high. When we're the lowest, what's gonna stop the next businesses for coming and asking, oh, I got special tax? Yeah, no. We're opening the door.
Councilman Casta?
I've been approached by the builders too, and Joe, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but said that the city of, the county, or us, but the city and county both are the highest in the state as far as hotel tax. Is that correct, or is that incorrect? I just want to clear the air on that.
We are tied for the highest.
Okay.
If you adopt this, you would not be the highest.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that because that may jeopardize the building in the future for our, in the county, I agree with you, Bill.
Building.
Well, if they wanna build more, they're not gonna build, the tax is too high, they're gonna go somewhere else outside of the county on that part.
There are people there, they will come,
Well, I'm just.
because it's the people that pay it. I vote how you want.
All right,
I
so
withdraw my substitute motion.
I was gonna say, the substitute motion fails, I apologize.
That's what,
We're back to the motion by Councilman May, properly seconded by Councilman Cassada. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Whoa, excuse me.
Sorry,
Are we voting to reduce it to 3.5?
yeah. That's
and
what
the memo from Mr.
Be
Fivas,
clear.
we're voting to go 4%, 3.5, but it will go back to 4, July 1, 2025.
Yeah.
It will revert back. This is a temporary reduction with an encouragement to the county to do the same.
Yeah.
Please.
All right, all minds, hearts clear? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman May.
Aye.
Councilman Cassidy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson. Councilwoman McKenzie. Councilman Estes.
No.
Councilman Hughes.
Say it louder.
No, I'm sorry if I didn't.
Speaking like.
Councilman Webb.
No.
It carries 5-2.
So,
Mr. Clerk, who is the second no?
Councilman Webb.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-2
so now we're not the highest, right?
temporarily.
Temporarily.
We're not done.
Okay.
So if this were to pass, we would not be the highest.
Yeah.
Requires 2 votes, right?
That's correct.
So we'll talk about this again.
Won't we?
Next item, M as in Mary, motion to approve staff to proceed with publishing a special notice concerning annexation by referendum to set a public hearing for September 25 to begin the process of approval. This would require a motion. Mr. Fivas, did you have a few answers for Councilman Estes?
Well, I can certainly answer questions. I think Councilman Estes brought up some good points, and I'm not pushing the point to have it done, but I think there's some clarification on where we are in the process and what's gonna happen and what's not gonna happen. And we can give you this is MTS's, and this is their resolution for step-by-step processes. We are at number 1. Identify the territories to be annexed, tax parcels, legal descriptions, or both. So, and then when we're saying notice, and that may be the wrong word, is just putting it out there that we're going to be looking for who would want us to be, who would want to be considered. The second step is prepare an annexation report and propose plan of service. While the statute does not require an annexation report, by doing a cost-benefit study, the municipality will better understand the impact of the annexation on existing services and funding. So that's a lot of the thing is, so there's a report, this is how, Cleveland Utilities will say, if you do this, this is gonna cost us this much. And
the police will say, well, if you are out there, how are you gonna have this service? We'll supply all this data for the people that may want to come in. And we'll do a report and give that to the council, review the annexation report and the proposed plan of services with the governing body, so that we bring the report back. And then you have not began the process, and that's what we were trying to discuss in the memo, is that's pre-exploratory. That's just getting some basic information so we can know what is what. We can know what Cleveland Utilities, we can know what the fire department thinks, we can know what the solid waste people think on, does this make sense? And what are all the impacts for all of that? At that point, then you begin, and I guess goes to Dr. Estes' question, that then you adopt an exploratory annexation, and that's where you get, where indicating the governing body supports to further investigate an annexation prospect and directing the planning commission. So that's where your process starts, and that would be the September date. So between now and September, we're just doing 1, 2, 3, and then bringing back the report. We have not committed to anyone, we haven't given any, hopefully we haven't given anyone any sense of security. Is basically, we're gonna do a report to see what we like, and then we'll bring back an exploratory annexation agreement. If there is anybody, if that's what the council decides that they want to do, and then you go forward, and then there's a number of other steps and processes that we'll in our report, we'll say this is what it will be. So I think Dr. Estes had some useful questions, and we probably should have articulated this better, but this in writing shows kind of what we were thinking, is that this is kind of a pre-process of doing some report and analysis and going from there.
Chris, can you scroll down to number 29? Now, let's look at the next section. So we can also do resolution by owner consent. We can annex with owner consent. We don't have to do voting, where owners can come to us. If people are already coming to us, we can go owner consent without having to ever put it on a ballot. And their best practices as well.
Provided.
Yeah, I know.
It's within the urban growth boundary.
Yeah,
This doesn't say so.
That's.
it is.
Look.
That's the problem.
Robert, what?
It has to be in the urban growth boundary.
If it's owner's consent.
It's two different laws and they don't reference each other in this.
They put them in the same bucket here.
Yeah,
They put them as A and B and don't make a distinction.
that's correct.
You're right. I mean, it does read that way, I agree, but think of it.
Two laws.
If that's what the Public 701 says, and that's what it says.
That's why the communities are using it.
The referendum
outside
rather
of
than,
the- outside
this
of
would be
the-
so simple.
Would it help maybe if,
No, I got it.
no, I was just gonna say, they could give you some examples of what they've looked at from other cities.
Yeah, that would help. I mean, been better than now, been better to have it a week ago. I'm good, thanks.
I make a motion, we approve.
Second.
All right. There is a motion on item M to approve by Councilman May, seconded by Councilman Webb. That is a proper motion. It is a proper second.
Quick question for Mr. Kimball. Are non-resident owners allowed to vote in this, the referendum?
Yeah, if you're an owner, it's got a definition of the property in the area to be annexed by referendum,
like Joe.
you have a right to vote. Now, there is
Looks like
this,
Gerald, doesn't it?
I don't get too much in the weeds. If you read through this, you'll see
You
that
kinda look like.
you have an option of, the affected people certainly have a right to vote, okay?
I got the big hair.
You-
Tina Turner.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
LLCs, how do they vote?
I don't know. But they're an owner for purposes of annexation, right? Yeah. We can look into that. read the same publication,
Yeah.
I read the whole thing.
it tells you that owners in the affected area have a right to know. It just uses the word owners. It doesn't draw a distinction between.
Well, the Attorney General said owners also means owner. He gave an opinion there that it can be a single person as well. I'm fine. I appreciate that. I was just curious. on those
Okay,
two.
we've had discussions, proper motion properly seconded. We've had discussion. Any further discussion from the council? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman May,
Aye.
Councilman Webb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson, Councilwoman McKenzie, Councilman Estes, Councilman Cassidy,
Aye.
Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. It takes us back to item G, has been added to new business as item N as in Nancy to discuss, I'll use this word, to re-discuss zoning ordinance 2023-32. There was a motion by Councilman Hughes, seconded by Councilman May. It passed 7-0. But then we had a question, point of order by Councilman Estes. Mr. Barnell, I'll let you bring us up to speed on where we are on
So,
item G.
Yes, thank you, sir, and I'll be extremely quick here. The planning commission, recommendation included, striking sentence 7B, regarding the pavilion and grilling area. The second was 6A, that the 50-foot right-of-way be moved to 40 to 45 feet, is the way it's written. So what that means is it's the 40 and 45. The 45 with the on-street parking, 40 otherwise, as I was mentioning earlier, as
But that's what we
specific to
voted
the
on.
minutes.
That's what we voted on.
Well, in the packet, I believe there was a little bit of a distinction, which was probably an error by me.
Okay.
In the packet, putting it together. So I want to be clear that that's what it is.
Councilman Estes, you brought the point of order.
Yeah, okay, so, thank you on the 40 to 45.
Yes, sir.
And it's highlighted. 7B means no.
No grilling
That's what we did
area.
in this planning commission.
Yes.
Long-term ownership of the other properties.
We didn't talk about that at the planning commission, so that would have to be added now, if you were going to.
So right now, it's, as with the planning commission,
That's correct.
well, we did talk about it at the planning commission,
The long-term ownership?
of the, not all the whole thing,
Okay.
but that like, some of it was gonna be maintained and then some of it was gonna be sold. The townhomes
Well,
would be
that's
sold
correct.
on the
There would be a
outside.
different
and then-
developer, builder for the town.
And on the inside, they would be maintained.
That's right. We did talk about that. I think what, the point here was the small cottage homes that can't be subdivided. But if they could be, like if there was one that could be, could they sell it off? And that one doesn't get taken care of, and it impacts all the others along with the entire site,
Can I ask Mr. Berry a question?
of course.
So, simple one, I mean, so, were you kosher with what was the planning commission path?
Yeah, because we passed, the only requested two changes, which is two that you mentioned,
Okay.
trucking and drilling.
Then I asked for
think-
clarification of our motions, that we know what we're talking about.
All right, Ms. Brandon, I will ask for you to clarify to the best of your understanding. Thank you, Mr.
Maybe
Berry.
I interrupted him, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think maybe what you're thinking about was there was a part of the PUD that required the homeowners association to have common maintenance, which that would apply, regardless of ownership. It's commonly maintained. Each homeowner doesn't maintain their own little parcel of ground.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Estes, so after reading the minutes where you and Mr. Taylor made the motion to accept what he proposed, the fix, if you look at page 166 of your packet, where the little yellow is.
Yep.
What you made the motion and Mr. Taylor seconded, in which the planning commission approved. The words, "in general, a 40 to 45-foot right-of-way is acceptable for all public roads within the PUD." You would put a period there and strike the words, "except where parking is on the street." And you would also delete where on-street parking is included, right-of-way is 50 feet. That would make, if you struck those words, that would make it what the planning commission recommended. So if that's what the council intended to approve, what was recommended, we can fix that for the final reading and strike out those words.
And I remember us talking about the YMCA being right across the street, the park right across the street, and so 7B was also not part of that. That was not part of 7B that required an additional amenity in the common area.
That's where you, that's where.
And that's not in this one, or, okay, I'm good. Yeah. So Mayor, I would ask, let's make sure we're all on the same page on
So
this.
here's my suggestion, is that we will bring you back at the final reading, what I just read with those words removed, so that it'll be exactly what you, Mr. Taylor, and the planning commission voted on, and then that way we think the final.
And that is actually appropriate, that we can amend it
Sure.
mid-vote for the final reading.
Thanks.
That is acceptable.
And to address the issue of change of ownership,
There's got a lot of them today.
there's no provision out.
Councilman Estes, Councilman Webb was addressing.
I was being made fun of by your colleague, Councilman.
No, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm very sensitive today.
I'm sorry.
Councilman Webb, could you please repeat your question? Okay. All right, thank you, staff, for your assistance on the resolution for item G, which is now item N, which we will hear from you all again in 2 weeks. Lastly, announcements, item 11, the next city council meeting will be held in this chamber Monday, August 28th, 2023. And unless there's any further comments or ridicule for Councilman Estes, I'll declare